I never thought the most humiliating moment of my life would come from someone I once called my friend. But there I was, standing in the middle of the office break room, clutching my coffee like it could protect me, as Bianca tore into me with that venom-laced smile of hers. Everyone watched. No one stepped in. And just like that, my dignity was stripped away in front of the people I had worked so hard to impress. "My God, Amira," she laughed loud enough to echo off the walls. "Do you ever do anything right? Or do you just like playing the victim for sympathy?" Laughter followed. Nervous, awkward but present. Like hyenas pretending they weren't enjoying the blood. I stood there, my throat burning, my hands shaking, my pride sinking into the cheap office carpet. I didn't say a word. Not because I didn't have something to say, but because I knew if I opened my mouth the tears would come. And I couldn't give her that. My name is Amira. And for most of my life I was the invisible girl. The dependable one. The one who helped behind the scenes, who remembered birthdays, who stayed late to fix mistakes that weren't hers. And Bianca? She was the golden one. Loud. Charismatic. Always the center of the room. People adored her because they didn't know what she was really like. I did. She wasn't always cruel. In fact, when I first joined the company, she took me under her wing. Bought me lunch, gave me tips, even defended me once in a meeting. But something changed. Maybe it was the praise I started getting from upper management. Maybe it was the quiet way I started climbing the ladder while she stayed still. Maybe she just hated that someone like me, soft, simple, unseen, was finally being seen. I never wanted to compete with her. I just wanted to grow. But growth to someone like Bianca felt like a threat. And that day in the break room, that was her warning shot. She accused me of stealing her client pitch. Said I'd accidentally forwarded her slides to myself and passed them off as mine. It wasn't true. I'd spent weeks working on my pitch, staying up late, refining every detail. But she was louder. And in corporate spaces, sometimes volume drowns out truth. Our boss didn't believe her, not fully. But the damage was done. The whispers started. The side eyes. I wasn't fired, but I was frozen out. Projects stopped landing on my desk. Emails went unanswered. My voice in meetings became invisible again. Bianca won. At least that's what she thought. I spent the next few months doing what I always did, working in silence. But this time I wasn't just surviving. I was building something. Late nights weren't spent crying anymore. They were spent learning, branding, digital marketing, product design. Every dollar I saved went into a dream I never told anyone about. While they mocked me, I built. While they excluded me, I studied. And while she celebrated, I planned. It started with an idea. Then a product. Then a name. And when I finally left the company, quietly without drama, no one even asked why. Not that I cared. Because I knew they'd hear my name again. Only next time, they'd hear it in rooms Bianca could never enter. When I left the office for the last time, I didn't slam any doors. I didn't make a scene or toss some dramatic farewell speech into the group chat. I just packed up my things, smiled at the intern who always held the elevator for me, and walked out like it was just another Tuesday. As it was. And yet it wasn't. Something inside me had shifted. The woman who walked into that building months ago, small, eager, constantly second-guessing herself, was gone. I wasn't just leaving a job. I was stepping out of a cage. Bianca never even noticed. She probably assumed she'd finally gotten rid of me. That her little show in the break room had pushed me out, bruised and broken. But she didn't know I had been planning my exit for weeks. Every file I sent myself wasn't gossip fodder. It was strategy. Every late night was me investing in a dream she couldn't even see. I launched my startup from my tiny studio apartment with nothing but a refurbished laptop, a $200 budget and a vision. It was a brand built on values Bianca would never understand. Quiet strength, authenticity, resilience. I called it Ashes and Alchemy. Because that's what I had become. Something forged from fire. Not ruined, reborn. At first it was slow. A website. A few social media posts. One sale. Then I designed every product myself, wrote every caption, replied to every customer message like it was a lifeline. I didn't sleep much. I didn't go out. But I was alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. The first big break came when a lifestyle influencer bought one of our affirmation journals and posted about it without being paid. Her words were simple: "This brand gets it." Overnight, orders flooded in. I remember sitting on my floor surrounded by packaging tape and boxes, laughing through my tears. It was chaos. Beautiful, overwhelming chaos. In 3 months, we hit 5 figures in revenue. By month 6, I hired my first employee. A single mom named Joy who had been laid off during downsizing. She reminded me of myself, hardworking, overlooked. I told her from day one, "We build each other here. No one climbs alone." Word spread. Women who had been belittled, ignored, passed over, they found us. They didn't just buy our products. They sent messages like, "Your story helped me leave my toxic job. I finally believe I'm worth more." We weren't just a brand. We were a movement. And Bianca? He still didn't know. Not until the podcast aired. A friend of mine, Tara, an editor at a business magazine, invited me to share my journey on her Women in Entrepreneurship podcast. I hesitated. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to drag anyone publicly. But I also knew, some stories need to be told. So I told mine. I didn't use names. I didn't need to. The message was bigger than her. I talked about working in spaces where your voice is treated like a nuisance. About being gaslit by people who smile to your face and sabotage you behind closed doors. About learning the difference between staying silent and staying strategic. I talked about Bianca. About the break room. About the pitch she accused me of stealing. And how I used that betrayal to build something no one could ever take from me. The episode went viral. Not celebrity viral, but real viral. The kind where women in HR offices and coffee shops and kitchen counters listened with wide eyes and whispered, "She's telling my story." It didn't take long before Bianca found it. She didn't reach out. Not directly. But suddenly, people from my old company started viewing my LinkedIn. A former coworker messaged me, "You're the one who got out. I'm proud of you." And then the email came. From a corporate events coordinator. "We'd love for you to speak at our Women in Leadership conference next quarter." The theme? Turning setbacks into success. "We think you're perfect for it." The irony? The event was sponsored by my old company. And Bianca? Listed as one of the breakout session speakers. I read the email 3 times before responding. Then I smiled. Not because I wanted revenge. But because fate already served it. All I had to do was show up. The venue was a glass tower downtown, sleek and modern, buzzing with the kind of energy that comes from ambition dressed in heels. I arrived early not out of nerves, but because I wanted to feel the room before it filled with faces and name tags. I had no idea how Bianca would react to seeing me. Truthfully, I didn't care. That part of me, the part that once shrank under her gaze, no longer existed. I wasn't the assistant carrying coffee anymore. I was the keynote speaker, invited, promoted, respected. They handed me a name badge. Leah Sinclair, founder and CEO Ashes and Alchemy. I pinned it on and walked through the main hall, every step echoing on polished marble. My image, professional headshot, black blazer, soft smile, was printed in the event brochure beneath the words, "Rising from the Rubble, a founder's journey from broken to built." And then I saw her. She was standing near the refreshment table mid-laugh with a group of people I vaguely recognized. Her hair was still perfect. Her stance still confident. But there was something different now, an edge of something she was trying to hide. Insecurity, maybe. Or recognition. Our eyes met. And I swear, for half a second she forgot how to breathe. She didn't move toward me. Didn't smile. Just stared like she was seeing a ghost. Or a consequence. I walked past her without flinching. Because that's what real power is. Grace wrapped in silence. The event kicked off an hour later. The room filled with women of every background, startup founders, corporate leaders, college students hoping to one day become something more than just potential. The host gave a glowing introduction before calling my name. I took the stage, adjusted the mic, and looked out at a sea of strangers. And one very familiar face near the back. She was seated in the second-to-last row, arms crossed, lips tight. "Good morning," I began, my voice steady. I'm Leah, and a few years ago I was told I didn't belong in the room. Today I get to tell you why that voice was wrong. The applause was soft at first, cautious. But as I continued telling my story, not with bitterness but with raw, unfiltered honesty, it grew. I didn't name names. I didn't point fingers. I let the details do the work. The passive-aggressive comments. The credit taken. The confidence chipped away in tiny, quiet jabs that no one else noticed but me. And then I told them about rebuilding. I told them about purpose. About power. About what happens when you stop waiting for someone to give you a seat and build your own damn table. When I finished, the room was silent. Not the kind of silence that feels empty, but the kind that says, "We heard you. We felt every word." Then applause. A standing ovation. I stepped off the stage, hands still trembling slightly. And there she was, Bianca, standing at the edge of the crowd, not clapping, not smiling. Just staring again. She approached me later in the lounge area. "I didn't know you were this," she said. I raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" She hesitated. "Big. Respected." "You never looked close enough to see me before," I said calmly. Bianca let out a breath. "I didn't realize you took things so personally." I blinked. That was the Bianca I remembered, dodging accountability wrapped in a backhanded compliment. "I didn't take it personally," I replied. "I took it seriously." She looked like she wanted to say more, maybe argue, maybe explain, but I didn't give her the chance. "I hope your session goes well," I said, already turning. I left her there, standing in a crowd of women who had just cheered for the woman she once belittled. And I didn't look back. Later that day, a young attendee approached me during lunch. She looked nervous, holding one of our journals in her hand. "You're the reason I started my business," she said. I was scared, but then I heard your podcast. I smiled, taking the journal and flipping it open. She had already started filling the pages with dreams. "You don't need permission to become who you are," I told her. "You just need a reason." Bianca's face flashed through my mind, smirking in that break room surrounded by people who laughed on cue. She had been my reason. But now, I was my own. The thing about people like Bianca is, they build their empires on illusion. Smoke and mirrors. Curated moments. Perfect lighting. Polished words. But eventually truth gets tired of hiding. And when it rises, it doesn't scream. It just undoes. About a month after the event, news broke quietly. A misfiled grant. A conflict of interest. An anonymous whistleblower. Suddenly, the nonprofit Bianca had curated as her crown jewel was under investigation. Not for fraud. Not for theft. For something far less scandalous, but far more revealing. Misrepresentation. The awards she boasted about. Half were partnerships, not her own. The community initiative she claimed to run? Outsourced entirely, her only role being a funding mention. The press caught on. The sponsors pulled out. And within weeks, Bianca's social media turned from glowing highlight reels to vague, cryptic quotes about loyalty and staying strong through storms. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post a thing. But I watched. Not out of pettiness but clarity. To remind myself what happens when ego becomes a leader and humility dies in the shadows. My team at Ashes and Alchemy was growing fast. We had just launched a scholarship program for first-generation women entrepreneurs and had been featured on a podcast with over 1 million listeners. Everything Bianca once said I wasn't, I was becoming. And one morning, as I sat at my favorite corner cafe working on a new workshop outline, I received an email with a subject line I never expected to see. From Bianca Collins. I stared at it for a full minute before clicking. "Leah, I'm reaching out not to rehash the past but to ask for something difficult. I know we've had our history. I know I hurt you. But I need help. My nonprofit is dissolving. My name is Mud. And the women I thought would stand with me, they've all disappeared. You always had something I didn't. Authenticity. Maybe grace. Maybe both. If you ever have time, I'd like to talk. Even just once. B. I closed the laptop gently. I didn't respond. Because what was there to say? She hadn't reached out to apologize. She hadn't owned her choices. He had just collapsed. And now I was the only hand she thought might help her stand again. But I had already given her my silence. That was more than enough. That same week, I was invited to co-host a panel at a national leadership summit. Hundreds of women gathered to hear stories like mine, raw, unfiltered, true. I spoke about transformation, about reclamation, about the long road between broken and better. And during a Q&A session, someone in the audience asked, "How do you deal with people from your past who try to come back after they see your success?" I smiled. "You don't," I said simply. "You let your peace be your boundary." The room hummed with quiet nods and knowing glances. As we all had a Bianca. We all knew what it felt like to be minimized, mocked, used, and to rise anyway. To those women, I wasn't just a speaker. I was proof. The night after the summit, I sat by my window with a glass of tea, watching the city glow like a constellation of second chances. I thought about the version of me who once cried in bathroom stalls, who once begged the universe for just one sign she was worth something. And I whispered to her in my mind, "You made it." There's a strange kind of quiet that comes after you stop chasing approval. Not bitterness. Not revenge. Just stillness. Like the world stops asking you to explain yourself, and for the first time, you don't feel the need to. That's where I was. After the summit, something shifted inside me. I wasn't just reclaiming my voice. I was amplifying it. Women started writing to me. Dozens at first, then hundreds. Some from small towns, others from corporate towers. Their stories sounded like echoes of mine. Shame that wasn't theirs, blame they carried quietly, victories they never got credit for. And now they wanted to be seen. To be heard. To rise. So I started recording my story. Not with a camera crew or professional lights. Just my phone. Raw. Unfiltered. Honest. The first video was simple. Here's what I wish someone told me when I thought I'd never recover from public humiliation. I didn't expect much. Maybe a few likes. Maybe a kind comment from a stranger. Instead, it exploded. Within days, the video was everywhere. Stitched. Quoted. Suddenly, Leah, the woman who once hid behind shame, was trending for her truth. My inbox flooded. Podcasts, panels, collaborations. My calendar was full, not of obligations but of opportunities. And somewhere in that whirlwind, I got a message that made my breath catch. From a journalist. They were running a piece called "The Cost of Influence," investigating false narratives pushed by wellness entrepreneurs for personal gain. Bianca's name was on the list. But they wanted background. "Do you have anything you'd like to share?" they asked. I sat with the question for days. I could have exposed everything. Screenshots, voice notes, emails. I still had them. Proof of what she said, what she did, how she manipulated others. But I didn't. Because by then I understood something Bianca never would. Real power doesn't scream. It builds. So I declined. Politely. Firmly. "She's not my story," I wrote. "My story is the woman I became after her." Weeks later, the article came out. It was damning, but not because of me. Because of the people she'd stepped on trying to stay on top. I was just a footnote, mentioned only once as someone who quietly walked away and rebuilt. I smiled when I read it. Quietly walked away and rebuilt. That was enough. Months passed. My brand expanded. I hired a team, most of them women who had once been passed over or dismissed. Every week, we hosted workshops and pop-up events. We created space for women to rewrite the narratives others tried to force on them. At one of those events, something unexpected happened. Bianca showed up. I saw her from the corner of my eye, standing near the back, alone, dressed down, almost unrecognizable. For a moment, I thought she'd leave. But she stayed. She didn't interrupt. Didn't ask for a microphone. He just listened. Afterward, while I was packing up, she approached me. "I'm not here to ask for anything," she said softly. "I just needed to see what you built." I nodded. "How you have." She hesitated. "I was awful to you. I was scared, jealous. I thought power meant control. But you turned it into something better." I didn't respond right away. Because part of me had waited years for this moment. Not to gloat. Not to hurt her. Just to see her see me. Not as the girl she once humiliated, but as the woman she could never break. I hope you find peace, Bianca, I said. But you won't find it here. She blinked, stepped back, and then she left. Just like that. I never saw her again. But I never needed to. Because the moment she walked away I realized, my story was never about her. It was about me. And I was finally ready to close that chapter. People often think revenge is loud, flashy. A dramatic speech, a mic drop, a public downfall for the world to see. But real revenge? It's quiet. It's living a life so full, so peaceful, so purposeful, that the people who once tried to ruin you can't even recognize you in the reflection of your success. That's what my life became. Peaceful. After Bianca faded from my rear view, the noise died down. The buzz from the article passed, the online chaos settled, and I was finally able to focus, not on proving anything to anyone, but on building. For the first time in my life, I wasn't defined by someone else's narrative. I was writing my own. The wellness brand I started as a lifeline became a movement. It grew beyond me, into something women clung to when they felt like giving up. Our online courses had thousands of enrollees. Our podcast topped the charts. We hosted healing retreats in quiet parts of the world where women came to let go of guilt, grief, and expectations they never asked for. And every time I stood in front of them, I remembered the girl who once cried in a locked bathroom stall because someone told the world she wasn't enough. I didn't need revenge anymore. Because I had impact. I had meaning. I had become the woman I needed back then. One night, during a Q&A panel, a woman stood up and asked, "What would you say to your younger self?" I paused. The room was quiet. "I'd tell her," I began slowly, "that the shame they tried to place on her was never hers to carry. That pain can either plant you or bury you, but if you give it time, it can bloom into something no one can take away." The audience clapped. Some cried. And I realized again that I wasn't alone. I never had been. Months later, I got an email from a publishing house. They wanted me to write a book. Not just about the scandal, but about the journey, the growth, the healing. They said women needed a guide, not just to survive, but to rise. So I wrote it. And when it launched, it hit the bestseller list in 3 days. Bianca's name wasn't in it. She didn't deserve the ink. But her shadow haunted the first few chapters, only because I had to tell the truth. Not to hurt her, but to liberate the women who'd lived it too. The final chapter? It was titled, "The Woman I Became." It was about walking through fire and choosing not to stay burned. About choosing yourself in a world that keeps asking you to shrink. About reclaiming your name. I signed hundreds of books that week. But one stood out. A woman waited quietly in line, holding her copy close to her chest. When she reached me, she looked nervous. "I'm not sure you remember me," she said, her voice trembling. "I used to work with Bianca. I saw what happened to you. And I never said anything. I didn't speak up. I'm sorry." I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw the guilt she was still carrying. I nodded. "It's okay. You're speaking now. That matters." She exhaled and I signed her book. "Your voice matters. Use it." And that's when I knew. This wasn't just a comeback. It was a reclamation. A voice. Of power. Of truth. Bianca may have tried to destroy me. But she only gave me a platform. A message. A mission. She publicly shamed me. And in doing so, she unknowingly gave birth to the woman she fears. Because I am not who I used to be. I am more. Now I get the final word. So to every woman who's been torn down, written off, laughed at, humiliated, you are not your shame. You are your comeback. Like, comment, share, and subscribe if you believe that your pain doesn't get the final say. You do.